And it's been far too long since this gentleman has been on the show. And so that means that he has to be greeted appropriately before we bring him out of the green room. So why don't we just go flashback?
Now Yamil Assad back to Almiron. Still Almiron. Still Almiron. 2-0 Atlanta United. It's another Peter from the Paraguayan.
Ha ha! And so we bring in Kevin Egan.
Johnny, I love you. How are you, man?
Good to see you, my friend. I guess I don't know. I before this morning, I would have guessed the proper greeting for you would have been yeet, but I don't think I could do that anymore.
No, we'll leave that to Jay. You know, I think for whatever reason, if Jason Longshore is watching this right now, I think that for whatever reason, every time I go on Soccer Down Here, I have some sort of a technical issue, and I find myself laughing about it, going, "What am I doing? Look at this. This is my computer that won't allow, for whatever reason." It won't allow my camera and my audio work, so therefore I'm calling off my phone. So I apologize. I apologize that this is Ragball Rovers right now, and I'm giving you a tour around my house. But I'm sorry about this technical issue on the computer.
Why? That's the beautiful part of live stuff, man. Is we get to see behind the scenes, and because there are those of us who we're just like okay, whatever works is what it works, and here's what it looks like. And it's just like, yeah, okay, great, fine, cool. We get to see Kevin Egan's hacienda.
You know what? We'll do it in front of the Christmas tree and the stockings, will we?
There you go.
Make it a bit more festive, yeah.
There it is. That is absolutely true. So what is it like for you having to balance travel schedules for both you and Kevin Patrick during soccer season?
It's all good. I mean, it's a challenge, and it can be. I'll say I'm lucky to have the wife that I have. She's an absolute legend in terms of managing a lot around the house and the kids and everything that we have going on. I've got two little kids that are 4 and 2. And then the schedule itself works out quite nicely. I'm on Friday night SmackDown now with WWE, and then Saturday or Sunday Major League Soccer, or Wednesday Major League Soccer. So a lot of the time I'm on the road, but it's manageable. And when you're home, you're still working because you're prepping for shows. But it's a labor of love, quite honestly. And it may not be the type of thing you can do forever because it's just so much time on the road. But for now, I'm really feeling very grateful and lucky.
Yep. And obviously, of course, Kev season this morning, there's a non-zero chance I crashed your computer. Because it's me and technology, brother. That's how this works.
Oh, likewise.
So, we're down to the final two in Major League Soccer. Last time I heard, there's going to be a championship game this weekend. Did your bracket bust, and how early did it bust?
No, I've got the final.
You do?
Yeah. So I have the final, but I had a shocker in the first round. I picked New York Red Bulls over Cincinnati, and it was the moment. Like there were certain question marks over Cincinnati going into the playoffs, and also New York Red Bulls were just hitting form at the right time. And I just had this feeling that they'd get something in Cincinnati and maybe even win both games on penalties. And they nearly snuck the second game, would have forced the third. Cincinnati win on penalties. Matt Miazga scenario we all know about. But that was the only game I got right. Everything else has been spot on so far. I mean, you're right, you're looking these things. But I figured LAFC would get the business done in Seattle. I figured Houston would get to the conference final. And then on the other side, Columbus, I have winning the whole thing. I've had winning the whole thing even before the Atlanta series. I think Columbus are the best team in the league right now.
What is it about Columbus and Wilfred Nancy? There's just a great deal of freedom that he lets them do. He lets them be creative. While, there's an idea about how you want to attack things out there, there's that creativity that you see, not just from the front, but you got dudes at the back who want to crash the party too at any given moment.
Freedom, however, they all understand the responsibility of that freedom. And that's the key. When you watch Columbus play, for me, it's like they're so fine-tuned and they're so clear with what their roles are. The great example for me is Moreira. Every time Moreira ventures forward and finds these pockets of space, there's cover for him. You understand why Farsi works instead of Gressel right now, even though Gressel's impact the other day off the bench was remarkable. But you understand, given the way they play with Yeboah and Farsi on the flanks, how important they are. Jordan Morris has been outrageous. Or it's Jordan Morris. Oh my God, Aiden Morris. Aiden Morris has been remarkable this season. And then there's always the fella called Darlington Nagbe, who, I was in a conversation with a bunch of guys after the game, and I said, at what point are we going to start talking about Darlington Nagbe as the greatest central midfielder MLS has ever seen? And I think we're at that point now. Darlington Nagbe wins on Saturday. He's picked up his 4th MLS Cup, 3 different clubs. He's taken that consistency from being a Mac Herman Trophy winner in college all the way through Major League Soccer. The knocks against him, unfortunately, in just given the day and age that we live in, is that he's not, powerful on social media. He's not a big voice. He doesn't jump to do the interviews post game. So you're not hearing from this guy an awful lot. And in today's day and age, that seems to count for something. And the other knock might be the national team and his reluctancy to play for the national team at times. So if you take those away and you simply focus on his Major League Soccer career, we were lucky in Atlanta to see 2 years of Darlington Nagbe here. He has been so stupidly special. And his ability as a player to morph from the much more attack-minded player that was often played out wide under Caleb Porter at Portland to now this much deeper lying experienced player that, on Saturday, he drew 9 fouls, John, at a time when they needed to slow the game down. He didn't foul once throughout the entire game. His passing obviously spot on, and I think he's brought Aiden Morris to the next level alongside him.
When you think about center mids, who else is a part of that discussion for best of all time that you include Nagbe in? Who else is a part of that pantheon for you?
Yeah, like you think, well, certainly in my time of covering the league, Ozzie Alonso, given the success that he had in Seattle, would be there. You go back to the early or much earlier years of Major League Soccer, and I think there's Peter Novak would be in the discussion. There's big names, but I don't know if there's anyone else. Kyle Beckerman, some people will make the argument for. However, he hasn't won what Darlington Nagbe's won, and he hasn't changed as many clubs as Darlington Nagbe's changed. And I'm a big fan of Darlington. As a fella, I don't know him very well. It's not like I'm friends with him and I'm making this case for him. Dax McCarty's career has been a storied one. Obviously, without that MLS Cup is a big thing for him, and I'm sure he'd love to try and capture that if he's going to play another year. I'm not sure. But Nagbe, John, what do you think? I mean, I think he's got to be right there.
And the thing that gets me is what you brought into the discussion is that he is this quiet force.
Yeah.
And he doesn't, he's not going to sit there and, be like Arn Anderson and toot his own horn. I'm not going to toot my own horn, but toot. But it's just he goes about his business. And I think those folks are underappreciated just because they don't sit there and go on the 280 character app and sit there and go, hey, look at me and look at my post, all these kinds of things. And I think that we get lost in the idea of dudes just going out, grabbing the hard hat and the lunch pail, going out there and doing their job. And then by the end of the day, I think that I'll guarantee you this. A year or two after Darlington Nagbe finally retires, I think we finally get that discussion that we're talking about now and the appreciation for Darlington because he's not here and a part of things anymore.
But see, I disagree. Yeah, I disagree because we're in such a swipe right culture where we move on to the next thing so quickly, right? And with Darlington, at least he's there and he's visible right now. So we're having this discussion now. But when Darlington stops playing, I don't think he's going to become a TV analyst. I don't know if he's going to become a coach. Maybe he will be, but I don't think he's going to be shouting from the rooftops about what a great career he had.
No.
And, there's a lot of the former players that are discussed today are discussed because they're either media members or they're coaches. And I don't know if Darlington Nagbe is not part of that, if he's not part of that conversation or that realm, will we be bringing him up? We may in Atlanta. The folks in Portland and Columbus may, but outside of that, I wonder, he didn't become that national team icon. I don't know. I'm not so sure about that. Like you look at some of the other
So then is it upon us to continue to have this Darlington Nagbe discussion because we know he's not going to do it for himself?
Well, if it's of interest to everybody, I mean, I marvel at him, the way, so I'll add this to this context. I text Michael Parkhurst after the game, and I said, for you, is Darlington Nagbe the greatest central midfielder in league history? And he wrote back, yes. Simple. Like for him, and he's biased potentially because Darlington's a good friend and they played together, and Parky won a championship alongside Nagbe. But I think we're witnessing league greatness in him today. I think Darlington Nagbe, and I've said this before, I said it during his peak year for me, his best year as a player for me was 2019. Actually, I thought he was next level in 19, and I honestly felt watching him that he's the type of guy you could drop into any squad in the world. He's not going to lose the ball. He's not going to seem out of place, And he stayed in Major League Soccer throughout his career, and that needs to be recognized.
Here's the numbers. I went to our friends at SofaScore, and I got his numbers from the match on the weekend. 81 of 85 passing, 95%. 101 touches, one long ball, and he completed it. Dribble attempts, he was 1 for 2. 11 of 16 on ground duels, in an homage to our buddy Frank DeBoer. 1 for 1 in the aerial duel that he had. Fouled 9 times, to your point. 1 pick, 1 tackle, and 3 dribbles passed. That was what Darlington Nagbe did in 120 minutes in Hell is Real plus 30.
Yeah, and you can see like the images of Nagbe crying after the game and what it means to him. To be an Ohio boy that's bringing MLS Cup to Ohio this Saturday, and that passion was screaming through. So for anyone that thinks, he just leaves the game and he goes home and he's with his family, there's all these narratives from all of us that don't have a clue, who these people really are. And so I'm going to talk about Nagbe in a way that I feel he deserves to be talked about, because he's for me is, you think best players ever in MLS for consistency, longevity. I think Landon's number 1. You don't win, 6 championships like Landon's won and have the career that he's had. And after that, if you want to go position by position, it's a good 11 to come up with someday. I know a fella called Jason Longshore, the historian, that would love something like this.
Godfather on this one.
Yeah, maybe you simply do it like you've got to have spent, like, let's say 7 or more years in the league.
Okay.
What's your best 11? And Nagbe's in the 11 for me.
Okay. Speaking of the 11, is that how many Christmas presents you have wrapped behind you, or has there been any wrapping yet?
Zero. I'm going to be Ireland bound for a bit this Christmas, which I can't wait for.
Okay. Let's go to the West. Kevin Egan hanging out with us for the first time in a long time. And by the way, if you want to make 9:30 Tuesday appointment, hanging out, it's yours, brother.
I'll leave the tree up all year. This will be my spot.
Well, in a way to blatantly promote, I don't believe you have one of these. Do you, sir?
I don't.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think you do. I don't think I can remember if you had one of the Atlanta is American Soccer SDH scarves, which are being reissued for the holidays.
Okay. All right.
Because of, recent events and stuff. And we're helping out our buddies in the Marshall Islands with that scarf reissue, stage 1 of 2. Since you had the full grid, let's go west. Glenn Davis hanging out with us in 15 minutes. And Houston. Now I've been raging for weeks. Why is Ben Olsen not getting the respect that he should be getting? He wasn't top 3 in Coach of the Year. I feel like because he's in Houston, he's in this black hole of media attention for whatever reason. Why is Ben Olsen not being talked about more?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's several really good coaching stories this year, and I think that's part of the issue in the lack of coverage for Ben. Look, Bradley Carnell, what he did was remarkable, and then laid an egg in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. That's why, for me, playoffs have to be considered in Coach of the Year voting. I mean, it's just so ridiculously stupid that you're going to not include the pressure cauldron that is the playoffs. We're going to see the best coaching when it comes to the high pressure situations in every single sport, in every single aspect of the world. The higher the pressure, the better you perform, the more accolades you should receive. And for me, look, Oscar Pereira had a really good year as well, but for Pat Noonan, obviously, and Wilfried Nancy, obviously. Mm-hmm. Ben Olsen is a fascinating case study for me. He's the second longest tenured coach at a single club in a single reign in MLS history, after the fella he faced in the conference semi-final in Peter Vermees. He spent 10 years at DC. From being a boy, he was 32 when he joined the coaching staff. He goes away after to the 2020 year when he was let go. He starts painting he finds a room in his house and he turns it into a studio and he starts painting and really starts to think about life and his world and let painting be an expression. And he starts to realize this is what football should be like, yada, yada, yada. He takes up a management position within the NWSL. He gets lured back by Pat Onstead to Houston. And all of a sudden, like, he says he's not different as a coach. The only thing he says he's different with, that's different for him, is he's re-energized. He's found his passion again. And he said, I will always adjust to the players I have. And so the players he have are the Emian Bassis, the Coco Carrasquillas, the Hector Herreras, Artur. Like, these are ball-playing players that want to play. And he's found a tune out of these guys. Hector Herrera was woeful in the half season we saw last year. And he was protecting himself with the World Cup on the horizon, and he had a lingering hamstring injury and all that. And I think what you've seen from Ben Olsen is real man management this year. In how do we get the very best out of these guys? How do we take Coco Carrasquilla to another level? And he's become the man at Panama since Ben Olsen's really kind of taken him under his wing. Corey Baird is up around 15 goals, I think, in all competitions this season for a fella who was really a winger.
16 different goal scorers this year, man.
What's that? Sorry?
16 different goal scorers this year.
Yeah. Griffin Dorsey, the perfect example of a fella who you've gotten a major tune out of, who's now being shouted for the national team. I think it's been a remarkable success story, but there's also been others. I mean, for a lot of reasons, Pablo Mastroeni had a really good year with Real Salt Lake. There was a lot of adversity faced for Gonzalo Pineda, and I thought at times a really, really good year. It's been an interesting season, but ultimately, I think we have the best two teams. I think harsh to say that on Cincinnati, but they didn't manage the end of that game well at all. Columbus, by far and away the better team, and Wilfred Nancy's proving that. I think outside of, we'll see on Saturday, because obviously Cherundolo's in that conversation. But outside of Tata, there's a lot of people saying that Wilfred Nancy's the best coach in Major League Soccer.
You mentioned LAFC, so let's go ahead and go here. I mean, it just seems like that LAFC is a different dog ever since they got out of the CONCACAF Champions League hemispheric extravaganza, and it's just like they're just different, and I can't put my finger on the why. It's like they want to be more defensive, and I mean that in almost pragmatic in a negative way. They want to bump you around. They want to foul. This is not your father's LAFC that we're used to seeing. It's not Showtime. It's more like grind it out and foul folks and try to draw you into things. What's going on here with this?
By your father's LAFC, do you mean like from 2 years ago?
Yeah. Yes, I absolutely do. Absolutely.
They're only around since 2018, John.
my older brother's LAFC.
I think it's the defensive side of the game for sure. And if I'm honest, I watch LAFC at times, and I don't really enjoy the way they play.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying I have to have a team that wants to possess all that. They're fun to watch, but they're fun to watch at times in like the way a monster truck derby is fun to watch. They're kind of chaotic. Like it can seem chaotic when Buanga's just tearing forward, or and Vela I thought was sensational over the weekend against Houston. I thought he had a really, really good performance in what could prove to be his final game at home. Honestly, we don't know yet. I think the defensive side of the game, Chiellini's influence huge. Murillo, Hollingshead continues to be one of the most underrated players in the league, and Chiqui Palacios as well have formed a really nice back four there. You look at the amount of times that Crepeau has been called into action here in the playoffs, and his story has been remarkable since breaking his leg in MLS Cup. Yep. So I'd love, nearly for his sake, if he could be the man and win MLS Cup. But I just also think the Wilfred Nancy story, and we're storytellers, John. We work in the broadcast world. Like, I think stories, and I'm thinking of the amount of stories that we have. The Wilfred Nancy story of his coaching background is the dream for every single young coach coming through that might be listening to Soccer Down here right now. Wilfred Nancy, go and look him up. Everything that he's done from the very bottom in the academy in Montreal, and before that to now leading the way, at Columbus Crew, and he will have suitors, believe me, from overseas and around Major League Soccer. Wilfred Nancy will be sought after.
How's the lactic acid in the arms there, bud, from holding your phone?
Fine. Yeah, all good.
Just check.
All good.
You got your coffee, and I don't want the lactic acid to be your best friend here as we're talking. Kevin Egan hanging out with us. Glenn Davis hanging out with us at the top of the hour here on SDH. So then when you look at this matchup of LAFC and Crew, if you and I were in the booth like we always do, title over wide comes up. We make the announcement, hey, we're at the Death Star, Team A, Team B. Then game kicks off and you get that tombstone in the corner, keys to the match. What are your keys of success for LAFC to beat Crew and for Crew to beat LAFC?
Oh, wow. I would for the Columbus Crew team that has Cucho playing the way he's playing, I would think getting those runners of Matan and Rossi, those diagonal runs, I think you could really drag LAFC's back four out of shape. And Cucho's ability to drop deep and be that 9.5 nearly or roam at times could cause problems for not only Chiellini and Murillo, but also Ilie in front of them. And I'm intrigued to see what the dynamic will look like with the movement for Columbus. And if they can drag LAFC out of shape a little bit, because we all know Columbus are going to have probably close to 60% of the ball, you would think, at home. And with the way they play. And LAFC, more than comfortable to play at times without the ball and really set themselves up to counter. On the flip side, the tactical side of things, I'm massively intrigued to see what the central midfield will look like, because Nagbe and Morris could, in theory, be outnumbered with the way Columbus play, but there might be some joy for LAFC on the flanks then going forward. And Buanga, if he can get in behind, whether he switches sides at all, gets in behind Yeboah or Farsi, and then you're asking centre backs to get out of position a little bit. I'm just massively intrigued to see the first 15-20 minutes to see how this game plays out. But I still think Columbus are favourites.
Run at Chiellini all day long. Run him into the ground. So he's got to be out of there, and you don't get that veteran presence after, say, 60 minutes. You got to.
Yeah, but the issue is if LAFC remain really compact, they won't allow those situations happen. And I think like Ilie in front of Chiellini is just a huge piece. Murillo alongside him. Obviously Hollingshead alongside him as well. I don't know if that situation is going to happen. Chiellini's around today. Is he 40 yet?
He's 72 years old.
If he's not, he's almost 40.
Yeah,
he's either 39 or 40, and he doesn't get exposed too often because he's so intelligent and he's speaking to the guys around him. So I'd be surprised if there's too many scenarios where Rossi, say, really gets a run at Chiellini, and if he can, that's a winning position for Columbus.
No doubt. Couple of random things before we go. So let's see. Born August 14th of 84, so he is 39.
Okay.
So he's 39 years old. Copa America coming to the States. The Benz is getting 2 games, including the kickoff with Argentina and some dude named Messi. What do you think about the Copa?
Yeah, it's exciting, isn't it? It's just so exciting. I think about being in the stands. I don't even think about broadcasting. When it comes to, I still sit on the couch and I watch a game as a fan. I've spoken to so many different broadcasters that can't because they're listening to the commentary or they're focused on the TV production. I'm a fan. When I sit down and watch a game, I turn into the ultimate fan, and I can't wait to hopefully be there with my son, if possible, and take it in with him, because I tell him stories. I've got Messi books upstairs that I read him and stuff, and just to be there on that day would be magic. And
then is Kevin Patrick available?
Yes, he is. Just 1 second there now.
Okay.
That's John Nelson. John Nelson. Yeah. How are you, John?
KP. I have been, I'm allowed one wrestling question here on SDH every time that your chauffeur Kevin Egan drops by.
Okay. Who agreed to that one wrestling question, by the way? I think you just made that up.
No. If it was me, KP and I would have our own segment, because that's how I roll. But the double return, and I give the production management team a whole lot of credit. Randy Orton comes out, you get the big pop. He comes out as the 5th member at War Games, and then you put up the copyright, and I give the production team full credit. Copyright comes up, and then you hear Living Color and CM Punk. What's it like to have these 2 big stars back in the fold there in Stamford, Connecticut?
It's well, they're not in Stamford. They're in
wherever,
every single city in America
under the corporate umbrella offices in Stamford, Connecticut,
and across the world right now. Like we've got shows in Australia in February, in Paris, in Lyon, France, in Saudi Arabia. Like their shows are all over the world these days, and it's like WWE is coming to you no matter where you are at this point. It's just such an international brand. CM Punk, I've never met. I'm looking forward to meeting him. He's on SmackDown this Friday. And Randy Orton is just the best. He's the absolute best as a fella. I'll say that. Behind the curtain, just such a brilliant, brilliant, fun guy. And JBL said it best years ago, that if you were to construct a WWE superstar from the ground up, if you were to just make one, it's Randy Orton. I mean, he look at him. He's so imposing. When you see him, he looks great. He's 6'3" or 4", he's 275 pounds. He's got a great face for a WWE superstar. He's excellent on the microphone. And when he hits that RKO, man, the roof blows off the building.
Especially on the GM, Nick Aldis. I mean, what was Randy thinking?
Yeah, that was fun. I'm not going to lie. Nick's had that coming for a while.
Where is SmackDown this Friday, KP?
It's in Providence, Rhode Island. And it's tribute to the troops this Friday, which should be lovely. Lots of great stories to tell.
And you got Rhode Island FC up there in Providence, too. You can probably get some shopping done for your buddy Parkhurst.
Yeah, there you go. We've got Rhode Island, and then we're on to Green Bay, Wisconsin next week.
Okay. So, KP, can you put Kevin Egan back on?
Yes. He's here. Yep. Quick swipe. I'm back.
So thanks for coming on a Tuesday. I know that coming off of busy weekends and things like that, getting ready for MLS Cup, it's been a fantastic season with you and Kendra and all the broadcast partners over there at Apple, and it's always great to see you working the WWE, and I'm still waiting for KP to take a bump somewhere.
Yeah, maybe someday. Who knows? I hope not. But thank you. By the way, I was on a plane recently, and I was something wrong with my leg, and I was like, "What is it? Like, there's an issue with my leg here, and I don't know what it is." And I got home, I'm like, "Oh, I've got a massive bruise on my thigh because Bailey was thrown over the desk in her big Doc Martin, and she came through me like Cristiano Ronaldo has never kicked a soccer ball as hard." And I was laughing, looking at the bruise, being like, "Oh yeah, that's from when I got taken out by a WWE superstar."
Did KP tell Bailey about getting taken out? Did you?
She'd just be bragging about it if I told her. So
okay, all right. Well, be good, my friend. And once again, 9:30 Tuesday is yours whenever you want it, and I will text you after the show so this can be added to your stacks.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody watching and listening to Soccer Down Here. Keep up the great work, John, and roll on 2024, guys.
You got it. Thanks a lot, my friend.
See ya. All the best.
Right, there goes Kevin, and here comes Jarrett. Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Wow. Glenn Davis joining us in a couple of minutes. And so we got to catch up with Kevin, and I know that this will surprise
Egan or Patrick?
Both, actually.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. It's tough to pin both of them down at once.
Yeah, apparently KP was crashing at Kevin Egan's place. And
what are the odds?
I know. And so we got to catch up. Apparently, KP has a bruise on his thigh from being run into by Bailey on a table crash.
Here's the thing about that. Even like the women's division, they built. They're sturdy. If they hit you, you're gonna feel it.
Yeah.
So I 110% believe that.
Yes. Abby, when it comes to arrivals, I'm going to post on social media and on the 280 character app that since the box is now at Office HD, folks can order at will. So that way, it's the box. The box is here, and so folks, if you guys want to order the Atlanta is American Soccer City scarf reissue, like I said, this is stage 1 of 2 when it comes to helping out our friends at the Marshall Islands here in 23 and 24. And so I will post on social media that folks can get the scarf now since the box is here.